The first scream of the chainsaw cut through the morning silence like a war cry. I bolted upright from the kitchen table, coffee sloshing as the guttural roar echoed across my property. By the time I made it outside, the scene was already grotesque. Planks of my cedar fence, carefully built by hand over 2 weekends, crashing to the dirt under the teeth of a chainsaw gripped by none other than Karen, our HOA president. Her bloated figure was hunched forward, sweat dripping down her temples. A deranged grin stretched across her face, as if she were carving her name into history with every slice of wood. Behind her, 2 of her cronies from the board stood smirking, one recording with his phone like it was some kind of trophy. "Karen," I shouted, my voice cracking the air. "What the hell are you doing?" She killed the saw for just a moment, turning to face me with a look of smug triumph, cheeks flushed with arrogance. "Removing an illegal structure," she declared. "This fence violates HOA sightline standards. I gave you warnings, and you ignored them, so I'm enforcing the rules." The audacity nearly stole my breath. My fence wasn't on HOA land, it was squarely inside my deeded property, backed by county survey stakes driven into the soil generations before Karen ever waddled into this neighborhood. "This is private property," I snapped, fists clenched. "You're trespassing, destroying my fence, and you're going to pay for every board you've cut." Karen's laughter rumbled low and cruel. "You think your papers matter? The HOA is the law here. You don't get to defy me." She yanked the chainsaw cord again, and the machine roared back to life. Neighbors began to gather, drawn by the noise, their faces pale with disbelief. Phones raised, whispers flew, but no one dared step in. Karen lowered the blade to another plank, and with a screech of splintering wood, another section of my fence toppled. I knew then it was no use arguing. She thrived on confrontation, on the illusion of power, on making me explode so she could twist the story. So instead, I raised my phone and began recording, capturing every cut, every arrogant smirk, every word dripping with entitlement. Karen noticed and bellowed over the saw. "Go ahead and record. Everyone will see you're the rule breaker, not me." She didn't realize she was digging her own grave with every board she felt. The sheriff arrived 20 minutes later, sirens wailing. Karen greeted him with mock tears, claiming I had built a dangerous illegal barricade, and that she was forced to act. But the deputy's eyes flicked between her revving saw and my flattened fence. He asked for paperwork. I handed him the survey deed. Karen produced nothing but her usual HOA handbook, which didn't apply outside their jurisdiction. The deputy's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, put down the saw. You're trespassing and destroying private property." Karen's face crumpled into fury. "You'll regret this," she shrieked, but she dropped the saw. Still, somehow, she strutted away that day, no cuffs, no punishment, just arrogance intact, leaving my fence in ruins. But she didn't know the storm she had unleashed. My insurance company filed claims. I filed a lawsuit for damages. And in the process, investigators uncovered something no one expected. Karen was months behind on her property taxes. Her arrogance had been a mask for desperation, her empire built on sand. The county scheduled her home for auction, a quiet notice buried in the legal pages of the newspaper. Most of the neighborhood missed it, but I didn't. I circled the date in red and waited. Auction day was surreal. Karen swaggered in, still trying to control the narrative, whispering to others that she was there to buy up land for the HOA, but when her own property came on the block, she froze, her face blanching. The room buzzed with whispers as the bidding began. She tried to laugh it off, but the cracks showed in her trembling hands. When the gavel fell, I held the winning bid. I had bought Karen's house, the fortress from which she had tormented us all. The look on her face was worth more than any property deed in the county. She stormed toward me, spittle flying, screaming, "You can't do this. This is my home. I am the HOA president. You'll never take it from me." But the gavel had sealed it. The sheriff, the same one who had watched her chainsaw my fence, stepped between us. "It's done, ma'am. It's not yours anymore." Karen collapsed into a chair, shaking, her empire of arrogance crumbling in real time. The courthouse was packed the day Karen tried to claw her way back. She had filed an emergency petition claiming the auction was invalid, that the HOA had rights that superseded county law, and that I had somehow tricked the system into giving me her home. The irony was suffocating. Here was the same woman who had chainsawed my fence on the basis of a handbook clause, now whining that real law had finally cornered her. She waddled into the courtroom with a stack of crumpled papers and the same arrogance she had carried onto my lawn, glaring at me like she could burn holes through my chest. The judge, a man who had lived in the county his whole life, wasted no time. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, peering over his glasses, "property taxes are not optional. Your home was auctioned according to state statute. You received notices, you failed to pay, and the sale is binding. You do not own that property anymore." Karen sputtered, her voice breaking. "But I am the HOA president. That house is the cornerstone of our community. You can't let some fence builder steal it." She jabbed a finger at me, her face twisted. The courtroom chuckled. Even the bailiff shook his head. My attorney rose, holding up the deed I'd won fair and square. "Your Honor, my client not only purchased the property lawfully, but he has also submitted evidence of Mrs. Whitmore's ongoing harassment, trespass, destruction of private property, and abuse of authority. We ask the court not only to dismiss her frivolous petition, but to recognize the pattern of misconduct that has plagued this community." The judge reviewed the documents, his face hardening. Then, to everyone's surprise, he asked if anyone in the gallery wished to speak. One by one, neighbors stood. Mrs. Lopez described the fines Karen invented for having wind chimes. Mr. Alvarez explained how she doctored meeting minutes. A young couple admitted she had threatened to foreclose on them if they didn't pay compliance fees in cash. Every testimony painted the same picture: a tyrant with a title, terrorizing a neighborhood she thought was her kingdom. Karen sat shaking, her eyes darting wildly, sweat rolling down her temples. Then came the twist. A man in a crisp suit stepped forward from the back. He introduced himself as an investigator from the state attorney's office. He had been watching Karen for months after complaints piled up, and my lawsuit had unearthed exactly what they needed. "We have evidence Mrs. Whitmore embezzled over $90,000 from HOA funds," he announced, his voice carrying across the hushed room. "She used intimidation, fraudulent fines, and falsified violations to funnel money into her personal accounts. And she tried to use violence and property destruction to cover her trail." Gasps erupted. Karen shrieked, "Lies. All lies. They're conspiring against me." But her words fell flat against the weight of evidence. The judge's gavel came down like thunder. "Mrs. Whitmore, not only is your petition denied, but you are hereby remanded into custody pending charges of embezzlement, fraud, and destruction of property." The bailiff snapped cuffs around her wrists as she screamed, thrashing, her voice echoing off the walls. "No, you can't do this. I am the HOA." The courtroom erupted in applause, a sound of release after years of suffocating under her thumb. Owning her house wasn't just poetic. Justicite became a symbol. I didn't keep it for myself. Instead, I turned it into a community center. We held barbecues in the backyard. She once used to spy on us. Kids played in the front yard. She once patrolled with a tape measure. We set up meetings in her living room, not to dictate rules, but to share food, music, and laughter. Every board she once nailed into a prison of control became part of our freedom. Karen, meanwhile, faced her reckoning. Her mugshot plastered the news, her story spreading like wildfire. HOA president loses home, faces prison after chainsaw rampage, read one headline. She became a cautionary tale, her arrogance reduced to a meme. In prison, she could no longer fine anyone, no longer wield her clipboard like a weapon. She was just another inmate, stripped of the illusion of power. Months later, as summer rolled in, we rebuilt my fence together. Neighbors came with hammers and nails. Kids painted the boards with bright colors and flowers. What Karen had destroyed, we rebuilt stronger and more beautiful. And every time I walked that fence line, I remembered the sound of her chainsaw and the sound of the gavel that ended her reign. Karen thought cutting down my fence would break me. Instead, it cut down her entire empire. She thought she could take my dignity, but she lost her home. She thought fear would keep us quiet, but truth gave us voices. She thought power was hers alone, but we discovered it belonged to us all along. So here's the question I'll leave with you. When someone like Karen abuses authority and believes they're untouchable, what's the right response? Silence and surrender, or standing up, fighting back, and letting the truth tear them down? We stood, we fought, and we won. What would you do?